taking a look then at the top of a closed string stairs with a landing. Alright, so the starting position of this now is going to be a little bit trickier, I suppose. So going to the top, kind of the top right hand side of your sheet to start, and I'm going to work back towards the left. Picking an area to start then is probably the next trickiest part. So I'm just going to measure in 120, and I'm going to put in a vertical line there. So that's going to represent one side of the newel post at the top of the stairs. So the newel post should be 100 by 100, scale 1 is to 5, makes that 20 by 20. Right, so try and keep your lines as parallel as you can. Alright, so that's where I'm going to start from. Then the top of the newel post can be done in a couple of different ways. Alright, so I'm just going to do this one slightly different than the previous drawing, just to give you an idea as to what you could do. So I'm just going to come out 2 mil either side of that, and this is just a newel post cap. Alright, so it can be perfectly fine. It's just some people just rather the ball at the bottom. And then again, that is just a matter of personal preference. Alright, so this is perfectly fine as well. So there's your cap, and here's our newel post running down. The next thing we're going to look at then is we're going to actually start off by putting in the handrail here, so the guardrail on the landing. Then we're going to come down, put in the floor, and then we're going to start putting our steps coming down here. Alright, so from the top of the newel post, I'm just going to measure down 10 millimeters. Alright, so that's going to give me the top of my handrail. Alright, so the handrail, just like in the previous drawing, alright, it's going to be 75 by 50, so 15 by 10. So we're going to measure down 10 here, and this is going to be our handrail. Alright, so there's the handrail put in. The handrail needs to be shown as to how it's joined in also. Right, might not always necessarily put in as a tenon and with a dowel going through it. Right, depends on the person manufacturing it. Alright, so depending on how they would go about it. Okay, so that's the first part. Then we want to look at where the floor is. Alright, so your handrail should be a minimum of 900 above the floor. Alright, so we're just going to say 900 divided by 5 gets 180. Alright, so 180 brings us down a real long ways down our page again. Alright, so I'm going to reduce this again like the previous question. Alright, so I'm going to reduce this to just 140 just for the sake of the drawing. Alright, so if we go 180, it's going to be too far down, and we're not going to have enough room to do the drawing. Alright, if you're doing it on A2 paper, which you would be in an exam, it would be perfect to do the proper measurements on it. Alright, just for now, we'll stick with what we have. Alright, so ideally that should be 180 millimeters. Alright, so 900 divided by 5. Alright, so that's just go with it for now. So that's our floor. Our floor is positioned there. So then I'm going to say the floor comes out to the middle of that newel post. Right, so that should come out 10 to there. Alright, I'm going to make this guy 4 mil thick, like the material that the steps are on. So your riser and going are both 4 mil thick. Alright, so that's actually going to be the first step. Right, so you step up onto this and onto the landing. Alright, so there is a little bit of extra detail now that we can put into this. Alright, so far. So we have our guardrail, and we might have vertical members underneath that. So same thing as the previous the previous drawing, right? So can't be any more than 100 mil. We were saying 90 mil. So if we say 18, and then it's 40 by 40, so it's 8. So I'm going to do a couple of these, as many as I can fit in, like your balusters. Right, so just add them in. Again, if you're asked to highlight in part B or C safety safety parts or safety areas of your stairs, this would be one that you could highlight. Alright, so that's the top, that's the edge of the sheet. I have no more space, so there you have your guardrail, and this is your floor and upstairs. Alright, so we need to show the detail underneath that then, as to how that is supported. Alright, so before we do that, alright, so before we go into that detail, if we were to, we could put in our first riser and our first going. Okay, so from, I was going to measure back 3 mil like the last round, so measure back 3, and then I'm going to come down 175, so I'm coming down 175. And then 4 mil. So this should be working a little bit in reverse now compared with the last one. So now this should be out, I'm trying to stick with the measurement for you, so it should be out 50. And then 4 mil thick. Let's just show you what's going on, and it's carrying on. Usually carry on 3 or 4 steps if you can. So again, out 50, 4 mil, and then we're going to come back in our 3 mil again for our nosing. Right, so the nosing has to be between 16 and 25 millimeters. And then down 35, which you won't be able to see there now. I'm just a little bit restricted now on the camera with regards to what I can show you, alright, because the arm isn't high enough to lift up to show you as much as I'd like. Alright, so if I had space, I would carry on for one more step, so I would. Alright, so I'll try and show 3 steps, so to me it would be 1, 2, and then I'd have a third one down here where I'm pointing now. That's the landing, it's not really accounted for. Alright, so now if I could find my rubber. Right, it seems to be gone on me. So if we were to we could put in just a housing joint. Right, and then you could put your bull nose onto the front of the step if you wanted to. Alright, so there's one part of it drawn. The next thing then that I wanted to do would be looking at kind of where your joists are and how that floor supported the air. Right, so that's fairly important. Alright, so you have a trimmer joist here that measures 200 by 75. Okay, so 200 by 75 would mean it comes down 40 mil, which would bring us to here, and then by 75, so divide that by 5, get you 15. Okay, so here we have, that's our trimmer joist. That would just be where you would have an opening left between the ground floor and the first floor. Alright, that would be left there. That's there to support the stairs mainly. Then you would have a number of ceiling joists, which are 200 by 50. Alright, so you would look at doing your measurements. Alright, so 400 millimeter centers usually, so you'd be coming over 80 mil to the center of the next one, and then if it's 200 by 50, so it's going to be 5 and 5 either side of that, and then it'll come down your 40 millimeters also. Okay, so that's important there. There's your joists. Now, how your joists are supported, you can have herringbone strutting, or you could have just normal strutting. Alright, so here, just for the purpose of a little bit of revision, I suppose, we'll put in our herringbone strutting. So something like that. Alright, and then you would have, let me just add it in here now. Something like that. Alright, so that's your strutting, so your services can run through wires, pipes, whatever you have going around. And then you would just have this finished with a plasterboard, alright, which will be 12.5 mil in thickness. Alright, so that would be plasterboarded up, and then sugar. So that will be plasterboarded up, and you'd have a skim finish put underneath it. Alright, so that is one area that's important to note. Okay, so then we have to look at our handrail, and then how our string is actually attached in again. It's very similar to the previous question, or to the bottom of the stairs, so the previous drawing. Okay, so then we're going to just mark in our pitch line. So pitch line is there. Just put it in red. You'd highlighted that it's optimal pitch line should be 35 degrees. Alright, in the previous one we done it was 42 drawn. Well, mine was anyway. So then from there we need to put in our handrail. Alright, so just looking at my previous drawing, I'm just going to try and keep them the same. So my vertical measurement I put in for my handrail was 140 from that red line. Okay, should be 170 to 180. Alright, so again, if you had an A2 page, it would be fine. Alright, so there's 140 to there for me, and then I'm just going to measure, or sorry, I'm going to put in my handrail then, trying to keep it at the same angle as the pitch line as best you can now. Right. It's hard when you're just using a ruler. And then we're going to go from there 10 mil, right, because the handrail is 75 by 50.